Hello and welcome back to World Talks, where every word matters. I'm Anna Kalczyńska. Good evening. Put rhetoric aside, what emerges from the decisions announced yesterday by the newly sworn-in President Donald Trump can be deeply concerning for Central Eastern Europe. President's executive order to end birthright citizenship could result in deportation of the Polish diaspora. The revision of the decisions of foreign aid taken by the previous administration of Joe Biden, if overturned, could endanger Polish security. To discuss the situation Poland faces following the inaugural speech of President Donald Trump, I'm now joined by Janusz Reiter, diplomat, international relations expert, and former ambassador to Berlin and Washington. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you for visiting our studio. So, ending birthright citizenship, that is an action that could exclude the children of undocumented immigrants from the right to citizenship by birth. This is a move which could directly affect Polish-American relation. So, do you think it's going to be a strain in so far very good relations?
Well, it is a decision of the US government. We have no influence on this decision or any other decisions in this area. We can be happy or unhappy about these decisions. I think the new thing is that most people in Poland were listening to the debate in the US on deportations and so on without making the connection to Poland.
Absolutely.
This was about Mexicans, this was about other nations in Central America. It was not about Poland. And suddenly, it is about Poland. And this must be very surprising or even shocking for many people in Poland. I mean, beyond that, this raises the question about the future of the Polish-American relationship and about the perception of the US in Poland. But I think we cannot fool ourselves. It's not going to be as harmonious as it used to be, because these are hard times. Mm-hmm. So the US has been loved by almost everybody in Poland. In Poland, this was not the European or international norm. I don't know whether this will change. It may change. Which is not that bad, because this is normal. But we will have to deal with that.
Yes, you say it's not so normal, but at the same time, America is being perceived in Poland as our main ally, as almost our savior that we can rely on. Definitely our main ally, more than anyone else here in Europe. So if
and
that
I hope
changes,
America will remain our ally. I hope there will be no changes in this area of the Polish-US relationship. But, of course, we do not know even that, because there are so many uncertainties. The specific feature of the American elections is that the Americans vote for their president. So they get a new president without thinking about the rest of the world, especially about the rest of the Western world, that gets a new leader. There is a kind of personal union between the person who is American president and who is informally the leader of the Western world. And this is why the Western world, and of course non-Western world too, listens to all major speeches by the US president, especially at his inauguration, and waits for messages. There was a lot of clear messages to the US, but there was no message to the world, especially no message to the Western world. So the question is Donald Trump going to abdicate from this informal position of the leader of the Western world, or what is the message of not sending a message? This is not only a Polish problem, but of course this is our problem, because this is part of the rules of the Western world that Poland joined back in 1989, 1990. And So relying on the American leadership was part of this game.
Pax Americana.
If this is questioned, well, then, how do we define our interests in the world if we don't know how the US defines its position in the world? How the US defines its commitment to Europe? And that happens, of course, at a very specific point of time, with the war in Ukraine, with the enormous pressure from Russia, and so on and so on. So it's not a perfect situation for a country in this geographical situation.
Adding that also political turmoils and big difficulties, economic difficulties of different European countries, right? But so yesterday we heard basically nothing on this part of Europe. So that could somehow tell us that there is a certain désintéressement on the part of Donald Trump in this area. On the other hand, perhaps it's premature to expect from inaugural speech to hear on Ukraine and to hear about our region.
I was not expecting any details. I was not expecting any detailed plans for Ukraine, but I was expecting a message to Europe. The traditional message of the US presidents was the commitment to the values of the transatlantic community and the commitment to the security of this region that was of Europe, that was understood part of the wider security concept of the transatlantic community. And now we need this commitment even more than in the past. And the question is, shall we get this commitment? I hope yes. I think we will have to discuss the terms, but I hope this commitment will not be questioned.
And what if there is no commitment? There was no commitment so far. We have only heard words about domestic importance of domestic policy. And so we could probably expect sort of American isolation.
No, what President Trump said, that was not a manifesto of isolation.
It was a golden era of America announced.
Yes. But he also said, well, we are going to rebuild American power. I mean, rebuild suggests that the American power was destroyed. I didn't have the sense that the American power was destroyed, but okay, that can be discussed. Massive investments in the US military capabilities. So the question is, what does the US need that for? And then, of course, you had the famous Panama Canal issue, plus earlier statements on Greenland and so on. This is not the language of isolationists.
Okay. So how about the decision on foreign aid? They are being under revision right now. All the foreign aid decisions taken by the previous Joe Biden's administration are being under revision. So what could it mean for the military bases in Redzikowo, for instance? Do you think that could be revised?
No, I don't think so. I don't think because this was not an expression of just pro-European emotions. This was an expression of American interests. Of course, you may say the American interests will be defined in a different way now, but I don't think that this will happen, especially here, because this is real. The US cannot afford losing influence in Europe. And if the US withdraws from Europe, there will be no empty space, there will be no vacuum. Somebody will fill this vacuum, this gap. Who can do it? It could be Russia and China. Can it be in the US interest to open the door for Europe, for Russia, open the door of Europe for Russia? No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, yes, that is definitely not the interest of the United States, but in order to push forward with certain policy, you need to be a very decisive leader. And here we hear Donald Trump as a conciliatory, rather, person who wants to end all wars.
Conciliatory, this is, no.
Maybe not conciliatory,
no.
but he announces that all the wars will be over.
The key word in his vocabulary is strength.
Strength.
Yeah, and so he believes in strength, power as the currency of international relations. So he believes that if America is so strong that it impresses both friends and enemies, well, then things will be easier to handle. I don't think that it will work that easily, but okay, if this strength is used for the right purpose, we need strength. The problem in Europe is that we forgot the realities of the world.
Absolutely.
And this is why, by the way, the return of Donald Trump to power is no shock for people in Asia. For them, it is a return to the norm. Mm-hmm. For the Europeans, this is a shock.
This is a shock.
Because the Europeans just forgot that they are an exception in the world. That the European concept, Europe is a continent that is very good at values, at norms. And this is of course,
and on
makes
economic cooperation. That's how European Union was built.
Power was not part of this European concept. This must change.
So do you think that, of course, it's hard to imagine United States withdrawing from NATO, abandoning NATO completely, but do you imagine a situation of limiting the number of soldiers deployed to Europe? To Poland, for instance?
I don't know that, because I don't believe that any decisions are have been made in the US. They will be made. No. What we do, the key question will be how the new president will handle the war in Ukraine. This is, of course, first the key question because of the impact of the war for Europe. Also because this will define the presidency. It will define the presidency because people will learn how this new president makes his decisions, based on what categories. Is it President Biden and the mainstream of American politics considered the war in Ukraine a question of interests, but also a question of norms and rules. The Russian aggression was a violation, a clear violation of all basic norms of the world. And this is why this could not be accepted. It was also against American interests. Now the question is, how will Donald Trump see that? As a question of American interests, or also as a question of global norms? It is in our interest that he is committed to the norms, because this is part of the game that we can rely on. Otherwise,
our future is uncertain.
Our future will be uncomfortable.
And Mr. Ambassador, just quickly to wrap up, do you think that it's possible also for Donald Trump, as with taking such a transactional approach, limiting financial aid to Ukraine?
This is not a question like financial aid to the developing world, but this is a strategic decision. This is part of the strategic decision. I don't think so. It would not make much sense, because
that would affect us, probably.
President Trump knows that this decision, this will be a defining moment in his presidency. So I believe that if he does not come to a quick solution with Mr. Putin, and I think it's unlikely to happen, then he will support Ukraine even more, because he cannot just write off Ukraine. This would be a damage to American interests, to his reputation, and this would be a signal that would encourage a lot of American enemies. This cannot be in Donald Trump's interest, it cannot be in the US interest, and of course it is not in Europe's interest.
Just as Steve Bannon said, Ukraine can quickly become Donald Trump's next Vietnam. So probably this is a decision to make. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for coming and for your insights and expertise. And that concludes this edition of World Talk. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned to TVP World for more.